Ula, you're not reading my press conference with ZEP because I called you here for specific things. Yeah. Anyway, there is a question about this issue of crocodiles. How many? In specific time period for which Home Affairs officials must be jailed, etc. Look, let me start from the beginning, how this process came about and unveiled. I said this process started when we learned that Bushiri, remember Bushiri was a permanent resident from a document he obtained from Home Affairs, but he defrauded a congregation of 102 million, was arrested by the Hawks. It is the Hawks, I must confess, who doubted this document and sent it to Home Affairs and say, we have arrested this man for fraud, but he has got a document here issued by you. Can you check it? And when Home Affairs checked it, found that indeed it was fraudulent. We immediately suspended the individuals who were involved in that, and many of them went through DC, and they were dismissed. But we did not stop there. We referred the matter to the Hawks to see if there was a criminal case, which, ma'am, you call treason. Yes, I must tell you, in my mind, this is high treason. I don't know in the law. In my mind, selling your country like this is high treason in my mind. But as I'm saying, we are a country governed on the basis of law. I don't know what it says in law. Now, we then learned that there's another pastor, the gentleman who is being charged for rape in Kabeja by the name of Omotoso. There was also a rumor that his documents were also somehow irregular or fraudulent. And my question is, which other priest, because there are many priests here who come from other countries, field stadia and all that, and people have been asking us about them. So I said, which other one? While we were pondering this question, not able to answer it, a petition arrived on my table, signed by 14 people who are working permitting. Permitting is where it falls under Mr. Mudiri Matthews there as the acting DDG. That's where permits are issued, permanent residents, visitors and permits. That's where they are issued really. So this erstwhile people are doing very important job. They now write a petition. They say the counter-corruption unit in the department must stop investigating their errors. What does that tell you? If you believe their errors, it means people are coming into South Africa and out and establishing businesses, even establishing home on the basis of errors. That's what it meant to me. Secondly, if they are not errors, then it means it's massive corruption. How many people does it involve, this massive corruption? I did not have an answer to that question. That's when then I said, no, this matter looks very serious. Let me put a special task team. And then I thought about a very experienced public servant in the name of Dr. Cassius Lubisi. He was joined by people who used to work for the Scorpions. You remember the entity called Scorpions, which was disbanded some years back. There are people who used to work there. They came in to join Lubisi. But he was also joined by people who were investigators for the Zondo Commission, the State Capture Commission, because the State Capture has just finished its work and they were free. So they joined Dr. Lubisi. And we gave them this job. Go back to 2004. Every document that was issued, visa, permanent residence, critical skills, business, corporate, whatever, please go to review them and see if they were issued in a correct manner. Because people who are issuing them said, errors. It's not us, it's them who said we committed errors. Which one was issued in error? Are these issues errors? How many were issued in this manner? How many errors were committed? We needed answers to those questions. And Lubisi report started the work. You are aware that we they went to Parliament to give their findings, and you are aware that their findings shows that the scope of work is huge. Then they gave recommendations. Amongst them, they said, look, Minister, you need a multidisciplinary team, a team that consists of forensic investigators. We were not doing forensics here. We were just reviewing the visas that were issued. It was not forensics. You will need forensics on each one of them we've identified. 2, you need data analysts to analyze this data that came out of our report. You need data capturers. 3, you also need very experienced senior counsel, because there's a possibility that some people who are big have already established themselves, they've already established businesses on the basis of this fraudulent document as Bushiri has done. And you might want to retrieve them. And of course, these are very highly moneyed people. They are going to rush to the courts of the country. You are aware that Bushiri has actually done that. Immediately we told him his document is fraudulent. We wrote him an alteram partem letter. He rushed to court immediately and said, look, I've been arrested by the Hawks. I'm due to answer questions in court, but the Department of Home Affairs has written me a letter to force me to reveal some of my answers, whereas it's my defense. And unfortunately, the judge, or was it a magistrate, agreed with him. And even now, our document is still there with him. Now, to avoid that, we need very highly experienced people. That's why we also thought about the SIU, because you are aware that the SIU has got a special tribunal that can allow them to do certain things without having to rush to a court of law. So at the moment, ma'am, we don't know how many of these crocodiles are, but we know they are there all over the country, in high places. Now, the issue of what are the number of years on which Home Affairs officials are sentenced, I'm sure you know that's a matter for the courts. Yes, it's the court which decide, because the people who have suspended and fired are 5 now. They might actually be given different years depending on what the judge or the magistrate decide. So we won't be able to know the number of years, etc. Pule, what is the crux about the ZEP, which need to be clarified? I thought I've clarified this matter many times. I said the ZEP was issued in 2009, when the world went into recession, and when the economy of Zimbabwe started collapsing. Many people rushed here in large numbers. All of them were coming under the name of refugee or asylum seekers. And you know, the word refugee and asylum seeker is prescribed by the international conventions. So basically, these were people who were rushing to South Africa for economic reasons, but not as refugees. But they were coming under the auspice of refugees. The refugee reception centers were not designed in 1998 when the act was passed, were not designed to deal with an avalanche of people all at the same time, mostly coming from the same country. So they were overrun, and some of the people started defrauding documents, etc. So a plan was hatched by Home Affairs. Let's give them a special permit to be in South Africa for a particular period while we are sorting out these problems. And that's how the ZEP was issued. And there were also conditions. 1, you had to show that you are at least employed, even if you came. It was not just issued to anybody because they're Zimbabwean. It was issued to the special group who ran into South Africa and say we are refugees when they were not. And I want to explain this because many people believe anybody from Zimbabwe is on the ZEP. There are many people from Zimbabwe in this country who are on a study permit, who are on a business visa, who are on a general work visa, who are on a critical skills visa, etc., and they are sojourning in South Africa, or who are permanent residents for that matter. So, but this particular group, it was known that they won't qualify for any of those at that time when they arrived, and that's why they were given a special permit. It was supposed to expire, as you know, in 2014. Come 2014, it was just extended to 2017. Come 2017, it was extended to 2022. And my question was, up to when? When is this going to stop? And in the meantime, Pule, complications were arising. Like, some of the conditions given was that once you receive the special permit, you can't apply for the other 17 visas that are on offer in South Africa. You can't apply for critical skills. You can't apply for a corporate visa. You can't apply for anything. You are stuck on this one. Now the question is that practical? Number one, there are people who were on the ZEP who eventually got married because they are interacting with South Africans. And you know, in terms of the law, once you marry a South African, you then automatically qualify to apply for permanent residency, which will eventually lead to citizenship. So if you come and they inform you that, oh no, but you signed for this ZEP that you are not gonna get any other permit, in a way we are telling you that you are not gonna get married. And we can't control who people fall in love with. So that in itself is wrong and it's problematic. Secondly, there are people who were students, because it was also one of the conditions. Are you employed? Are you a student? Are you running business? There were three. There were those who are students. They did degrees here in South Africa and passed, some of them in critical skill areas, and they could apply for a critical skills list. Critical skills visa, which they qualify for. And imagine being told that, no, but your condition of ZEP is that you can't apply for this. They will obviously rush to court. So there were many complications, and we said, no, this thing cannot continue. After all, it was meant to be for 5 years only. And it kept on being extended, which means perhaps it was not well thought of that things like this will happen. And that's why we said we are giving them a year to apply for the other mainstream visas, the 17, which in terms of the original document they were barred from applying for. We said now apply for them. And now, Pile, there is something that in the media, for some reason, people refuse to accept even when we explain. They said, but these people, you know very well, Minister, they won't qualify because many of them are domestic workers. Only people with critical skill will qualify. Some are working in the gardens, in agriculture, in the restaurants. What they are failing to understand is that we knew that, and we catered for it. In the Immigration Act, when you apply for a general work visa, the law says your employer, who is supposed to employ you, is supposed to go to the Department of Labor and Employment and prove that they have searched the length and breadth of South Africa and they could not find any South Africans who can perform that job. So they are asking the Department of Labor to give them a certificate to hire somebody from outside the country. That's what the Act says. And we know that that did not happen. Many employers ignored it. And maybe the Department of Employment and Labor also ignored such transgressions. Now, we said in the case of these people who were on the ZEP, because they've already been on this work, they must apply to the minister to set aside, to give them an exemption actually, to exempt them from having to go to the Department of Labor. All they need to do is that I was given the ZEP because I was employed, and I'm still employed. Then we say, then apply for, if you are employed in general work, apply for it. If critical, if what, apply for that. If it's general work, we are exempting you from going to the Department of Labor. So you don't have to prove anything about a South African who's more suitable than you. And we got those applications. DG, how many of them up to now?
80,000.
Yes. 80,000 of such people have already applied for this exemption. And I've signed many of them to say you are exempted because that was part of the plan. So the story that, no, we're going to cause a crisis, we know very well that people won't qualify and all that, doesn't take these issues into consideration, Ule. So these are some of the things we want clarified. The other thing, if you remember in court, they talked about PAJA, promotion of administrative justice, that before you take an administrative action on anybody, you need to consult them. I want the clarity on this consultation, because in South Africa, when we make laws, we consult the public, you are aware. It's called public participation. Now, this particular one, who do I consult? South Africans or Zimbabweans of a particular creed? In what way? We were told by lawyers, these are lawyers who are trained, that no, even after taking this decision, you can still do PAJA. In what way? Each one of the people who were affected, 178,000, we wrote them a letter to explain to them what we are doing. We even left a phone number there and an email to say, if you have got questions or queries about this, please write to us. We even issued a government gazette. We gazetted that statement so that anybody can see it, which with the details of where they need to lodge a complaint if they have to. We even wrote via DECO to the ambassador of Zimbabwe and say, you are nationals who are here. If they come to you, ask questions when they are confused, this is exactly what we're saying, this is what you were doing, please explain to them. So three things: writing a letter, gazetting to an individual on the last address given. And I'm emphasizing that because some of them gave these addresses in 2019. They are no longer there in any of those addresses. Some gave somebody else's address. Some just gave an address that doesn't exist. We know that happens a lot in Home Affairs. So we said, because we don't know where to get them, let those who gave us addresses, let's write to them. We even sent SMSs on the last available cell phone number in our systems. We then wrote to the ambassador of Zimbabwe. We then gazetted it. Now, we are saying that to us was enough consultation. Can the court clarify to us what actually they mean in terms of PAJA, of not consulting somebody? Now, I'm sure you are also aware that there's another case, Pule. The courts have to pronounce on it. They've not yet done so, where some of them went to court and say, oh, we no longer even want to challenge this ZEP only. We want permanent residence. We've been in South Africa long enough to deserve permanent residence and eventually become citizens. We also don't believe that should be the case, because it will open precedents which we won't be able to control. So there are lots of things really that needs to be clarified. There was also an issue that now we have got kids here who are attending school, we are going to uproot them and send them back, it's going to cause chaos. And we responded, Pule. In South Africa, there's the Children's Act. It is very clear that in government, whatever decision you make, it must be made in the best interest of the child. So as Home Affairs, we are also bound by the Children's Act. So when we finally make a decision on somebody applying, we look at the issue of kids. How many kids will be affected? Can we go on with this decision, or on the basis of the kids affected, maybe let's defer it and all that? We were going to do that, but we did not want to do it as a blanket thing, which is maybe what some of the NGOs were forcing us. We wanted to do it to a particular specific individuals whom are affected by this issue. So we have got a lot of things that really needs to be clarified. Thank you very much.